Is Invincible any good? Yes, and here's why. One of my biggest obsessions recently has been it was recommended to me by my boyfriend many, many months ago. Shout out to you, Noah. And I just didn't believe it could be good, like, at all. I've just never been into anything superhero related historically, never got into the Marvel slash DC craze or anything like that. And it didn't really help that in recent years, more and more fans and critics of these big superhero franchises have been saying that there's been a clear decline in quality. The closest I think I've been to liking a piece of superhero media was when Infinity War and Endgame came out, and also, funnily enough, the Amazing Spider-Man movies. So when Invincible came on my radar, I was pretty sure, like almost 100% sure that I wouldn't like it, and I couldn't have been more wrong. If you haven't seen the show yet or don't know what it's about, Invincible follows the story of Mark Grayson, a 17-year-old who lives a mostly average life, ignoring the fact that he's the son of the most powerful superhero on the planet, until one day he gets his powers and begins to navigate the extremely rocky journey it takes him on. As you can imagine, Mark getting his powers is kind of the first big turning point in the series. I mean, he still acts like your average teenage guy, but he's the furthest thing from it. He has to learn how to adjust to a change in his family life, social life, academic life, and the show doesn't skip out on this at all. We see and experience these things with Mark in real time, and all the struggles you can imagine with such a life-changing event happening are all written about. Stephen Yeun does an amazing job at voicing Mark and really bringing his character to life, and the whole voice actor list is actually really stacked. Nolan is voiced by J.K. Simmons, Debbie is voiced by Sandra Oh, and down the line, if you haven't already watched the show, chances are that you'll hear some really familiar voices. Every character is elevated not just by the incredible voice acting, but through the storytelling as well. It's honestly difficult to think of characters that haven't been fleshed out to some extent. You really get to know each character's story and personality, even if there are some characters that just aren't likable. Challenges aren't just faced by Mark himself, but also everyone around him. Literally nobody is safe in this show, not even Mark himself, since he gets beaten to a pulp time and time again every other episode. And that leaves a lot of the plot to be unpredictable. Even though typically you might expect all the good guys to be safe in the end, or breeze through the fighting sequences with their opponents, the same thing can't really be said with Invincible. It doesn't have to be a character death, but struggle is captured through other types of pain, loss, and betrayal. Actions have consequences in Invincible, and I love this because the characters in the show are some of the most powerful beings on Earth. Mark can fly, has superhuman strength and speed, yet he can't prevent death and destruction in his world. No matter how strong he is or how good his intentions are, Mark loses. A lot. But through everything he faces, he still manages to bounce back because he's driven by his desire to do what he thinks is right. He's also really dumb at times and makes dumb decisions. He can be a hypocrite and not fully realize his own mistakes, but I still find myself wanting to root for him, knowing that his intentions are good, and because his character continuously develops throughout the show. And this creates some really interesting conversation among the viewers, like the whole Cecil versus Mark debate. Who's right, who's wrong? Is Cecil right for almost blowing up Mark's eardrums, or was Mark getting out of control? The answer isn't usually clear, and it's not always a yes or no question. To me, there's nobody who was 100% right in the situation, but I think that's what makes the dialogue so intriguing in the first place. After watching all three seasons, I read all 44 issues of the comic because I was obsessed. And it's clear that the show made a lot of improvements to it. I felt like some of the characters felt flat in terms of writing in the comic, but those same characters were much more fleshed out in the show. There were also subplots that were added or tweaked, which I really liked. One example of that is seeing Donald discover his identity more and having him and Rick connect over having been through traumatic experiences that left them feeling like a part of them was missing. Robert Kirkman, the creator of Invincible, is an executive producer on the show, so it does make sense that there would be aspects from the comic that he'd want to change. Take Debbie's character, for example. There is so much depth added to her in the show since she has more agency, is able to show vulnerability, and isn't just there to be your typical mom character. In season 1, when she started suspecting something was wrong, she acted on it, investigated on her own. She might not have any powers, but she doesn't let that make her feel less than her superhero family. In fact, her being able to stand her ground against them is what shapes Mark into the person he becomes.
Mark, you need to sleep.
I need to practice.
Honey, it's the middle of the night. I have work tomorrow, you have school. Get inside right now.
Make me.
Does that make you feel strong? To know I can't physically make you do something, is that what you need?
Another aspect of the show that I really love is the way that it deals with morality. In the beginning of the show, Mark is your cardboard cutout of a hero. Extremely idealistic, empathetic, courageous, and resilient. And because of these qualities and the fact that he confines his view of the world to being strictly good or bad, it leads him to make some questionable decisions as the show goes on. This becomes more apparent as the show progresses, and you kind of start to realize just how limiting Mark's idealism becomes to him. And after a certain point, Mark starts to realize this too. But it's not just Mark's morality who's questioned, it's almost all of the main characters that have to face some type of moral dilemma, which makes them, or you as the viewer, question their ideals. This is probably one of my favorite things to talk about in relation to Invincible, and once more of the comic gets animated, I can probably go into more depth about it, but I don't want to spoil everyone right now. One thing that I also found intimidating about those big superhero franchises in the past was the amount of lore behind everything. There usually isn't a distinct starting point because most, if not all, of the characters have several comics or movies made about them that you would need to have seen or read in order to fully understand what's happening. But Invincible is refreshing in that sense because the world building and character development is so expansive, yet the story is still linear and you don't need any prior knowledge to get into it. And Invincible also has a formal conclusion eventually, so things do naturally come to a conclusion and they don't drag on indefinitely. Anyway, those are some of my Invincible takes, opinions on the show. I cannot stress enough how amazing the show is. There are so many factors. The ones I listed in this video were just some of them that make the show incredible, and I find any excuse I can to rewatch the show or read the comic again. So I hope this convinces someone out there who hasn't watched the show yet to give it a try. And yeah, I know this was a bit of a different video from what I usually do. It's not a vlog, obviously, but I thought I would try something different for today, and I was writing some notes on the show and thought it would be a good idea to turn that into a video. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!